What is a Gibson BluesHawk? What kind of pickups are these? We'll touch a little bit on the history of the guitar, and then we'll talk about the very, very weird specs. And then we'll do some comparisons with a lot of guitars that a lot of people say this seems to be like. But enough talking, let's get after it. Designed with the blues player in mind, the Gibson BluesHawk was introduced around 1996. It was sort of an evolution, just a different part of the Nighthawk series. It ran from 1996 until 2006. Then it was eventually reintroduced in the Epiphone lineup with different pickups. Similar to the Nighthawk series, the BluesHawk has a smaller, thinner shaped body with a Florentine cutaway. A lot of people say it's a cross between a Les Paul and an ES 135. Also similar to the Nighthawk series, the BluesHawk actually has a Fender scale of 25.5-inch scale rather than the typical Gibson, which is sitting at about 24.75-inch scale. And again, also similar with the Nighthawk series, we have a string-through body setup, similar to another type of guitar. But unlike the Nighthawk series, which had a mahogany body with a maple cap, this has a poplar body with a maple cap. It's also a semi-hollowed. As you can see, we have the F-holes here. It's also kind of a cross between a traditional semi-hollow, which has a center block going down the middle, and a Thinline guitar where portions of the body are kind of semi-hollowed or hollowed out and other portions of the body remain solid. The BluesHawk is sort of like a traditional solid body guitar, however it is chambered for the F-holes, but certain portions of it are still solid. And again, like I said, there's not like a center block and everything else is hollowed out. And just like the other guitar that we were talking about earlier, we have a three-way blade switch with a master volume and a master tone. However, the BluesHawk has the addition of the six-way Varitone. The Varitone Circuit, what that does is it has 5 different EQ-based filters. When I say six-way, it has position 6 is off. So that allows you to change either pickups in either of the 3 different positions to have those EQ-based filters applied to them. You can also pull up on the push-pull here, and that will automatically turn the Varitone off. We also have some similarities to the SG. First and foremost, if you look at the headstock, we have 2 inlaid diamonds here, and on the SG and ES series and stuff like that, even some Les Pauls, we have the inlaid crown or holly leaf here. One feature with the SG that's not talked about often is the fact that the body, the top of it at least, starts to slant towards the neck heel. That's the same with the BluesHawk, however, it actually starts right here and then starts to slant to the neck heel. The BluesHawk also has a mahogany neck. The neck pattern here is a V-shaped neck, which is also similar to another guitar, my Gretsch Brian Setzer Hot Rod. Now, a lot of people seem to think that the BluesHawk is just a semi-hollow version of a Les Paul Special. That's definitely not the case. There's a lot of differences between both of these guitars. But one thing that I've always found neat was the BluesHawk has a bound body, obviously because of the maple cap. Whereas there's no binding on the Les Paul Special's body, but the neck has binding, and there's no neck binding at all on the rosewood board on the BluesHawk. Now on to the pickups, and this is where it can get a little controversial, and this is where the guitar seems to get misunderstood a lot, because these aren't P90s. Here's my Gibson Les Paul Classic with P90s. The P90 pickup has 6 screw-in pole pieces that attach to a bar magnet that's at the bottom of the pickup. A lot of people also seem to think that the pickups in the BluesHawk are stack coiled. that's definitely not the case. This is my Gibson ES 135. It has stacked coil pickups. These are P100s, also not to be confused with P90s. What stacked coils means is that there's one coil, and that's stacked on top of another coil. So it's sort of set up like a humbucker where there's two coils together. However, these are wired in parallel rather than typical humbuckers, which are wired in series. These also don't sound like a humbucker, and they don't sound like a P90, and they also don't sound like the pickups in the BluesHawk. So the pickups here in the BluesHawk are the Blues 90 pickups. So what's the difference? First and foremost, they're not stacked coils. It's a single coil. It does not have the 6 screw-in pole pieces that connect to a bar magnet at the bottom. This has 6 barrel magnets. They're Alnico 5. And then they have less windings, I guess, than a P90. So the copper wire that goes around it, less windings. Go figure. There's also a similar design in a different Gibson pickup, the P90S, not to be confused again with the P90, which has a different sound. Those pickups, I know for sure they're in the 2014 Gibson Melody Maker. You'll also find that there's a dummy coil located at the back of the guitar. This is designed to help deal with noise and hum, some of which would be coming from the semi-hollow design. The construction of the Blues 90 is a little more similar to the Jazzmaster pickup, as in that it's got a larger housing and it has these 6 barrel magnets. Let's do some quick comparisons here between the Blues 90s pickups and the other pickups that were mentioned there, and we'll actually throw in a mini humbucker as well, just for a bit of a fun reference. Now this is not going to be scientific, so if you're looking for, me to put all of the pickups, take the time and rewire everything, especially with the dummy coil, and make sure that they're in the same body, not the video for that. But if you want to make that video and you want to take the time to do everything like that, I would definitely love to watch it. So here's some back-to-back quick comparisons between the Blues 90, P90, P100. We'll throw in a Epiphone type design, Path type design, mini humbucker, and then of course a Jazzmaster pickup. So now that we've heard the pickup comparisons and perhaps the confused identity over what pickups are actually in this guitar, I want to address some of the perhaps confused identity about this guitar that I've heard over the years. Now, One quick thing I want to mention before we get into those. I've wanted this guitar since I was 16 years old. I remember seeing it in the Gibson catalog and just thinking this was the coolest, one of the coolest things I've ever seen. It's got the smaller body. It's like a Les Paul that was compressed a little bit, and it's got the Florentine cutaway rather than the Venetian cutaway. To, you know, 16-year-old Ryan, this was the coolest thing I've seen. But the other thing, and the thing that really made me want this guitar was, I swear up and down I saw an advertisement with Joe Walsh playing this guitar. I have not been able to track it down. I don't know if it was in the catalogs that I was seeing, but I remember seeing an advertisement with Joe Walsh playing this. So I've heard quite a few things over the years on what this guitar was, because I had never seen this in stock. I'd never played this before I actually got it. So I didn't necessarily know what this was, and I'd heard so many different things over the years on it. So let's take a look at some of them. First up, the BluesHawk is just a semi-hollow version of the Gibson Les Paul Special. Now, more than likely, the fact that you're seeing P90 pickups in here, so the same kind of covers and everything, and the fact that this is a slab body, it does not have the carved top. So when you're looking at both of them, it kind of looks like they could be similar. And you know what? Take away the pick guard and, you know, you change some of the electronics and stuff like that and semi-hollowed it out, and you know what? They would look the same. But there's definitely a large difference. Next one I heard was, it's the Gibson Stratocaster. A lot of that has to do with the scale length. So again, we have 25.5-inch scale rather than the typical Gibson one, which is 24.75 inch. A typical Stratocaster has 5 different positions. Now the Varitone actually gives you a lot more. It gives you 5 different positions other than, you know, just completely being off. But it actually gives you more positions just because of the fact that you have the 3 pickup combinations, and then for each of those you have all the Varitones. There's also a belly carve on Stratocasters. This is much different than the belly carve that's on the BluesHawk, but it's still there. So you know what? We have to count it. Let's quickly take a look at the 5 positions on a Stratocaster versus all the different positions on a BluesHawk. also heard that it was Gibson's version of the Telecaster. Because of course, when you're looking at it, we look at scale length, and then we have a hardtail bridge here. That's string through body. We also have a three-way blade switch with a master tone and a master volume. All those things line up, but there's definitely a lot of differences between both guitars. But hold on a second, there's a Thinline Telecaster. So the BluesHawk is a cross between a Thinline and a semi-hollow. So again, doesn't have a center block, and there's portions of the body that are solid, just like a Thinline. So all the same things, 25.5-inch scale, blade switch, master volume, master tone, hardtail bridge, string through body. Let's take a listen. You can't mention the Thinline Telecaster without mentioning the Thinline Stratocaster. All the same, everything. But let's take a listen again between both of them. I'll put this in single coil rather than in humbucker, and we'll hear. That it was the Gibson version of the Jazzmaster. Now, this is not a Jazzmaster. It isn't, it isn't. This is the Parallel Universe Jazz Tele. So it has the 65 pure vintage Jazzmaster pickups. So that's good. So you have the same pickup design and everything like that. But wow, there is definitely a difference in sound and clearly feel, because this has a vibrato and everything on it. So let's listen to that. Then I heard that it was just a smaller version of a Gibson ES 135. Now, we already talked about the 135. It's got the Florentine cutaway. Very, very different Florentine cutaway. This one's more curved than the BluesHawk. It's still a semi-hollow design. However, this has different woods and such, and it also has a center block. The BluesHawk is like a thin line meeting a semi-hollow guitar. P100 pickups versus Blues 90. So even though we've already heard the difference between both of them, we'll, in the interest of fairness, do it again. Then, of course, I heard it's just a different version of the ES 335. Now, more than likely, that's because this is one of the most popular semi-hollows. There's a lot of differences here. This is a semi-hollow with a center block. It has humbuckers in it. Very different materials that are being used, but in the interest of fairness, here's the difference. then of course you'd basically hear the it's just a Les Paul with filtertrons, or it's just a Les Paul with mini humbuckers or with different humbuckers in it. I'm gonna show the filtertrons here just because it is something that does come up in the differences and such, but it's definitely not the case. So hopefully by now you've kind of gathered that the BluesHawk is kind of its own thing, which is really what you're looking for in a guitar, right? But I do have to address, and I do want to address, the Varitone switch. And I will say, a black guitar with gold hardware with a Varitone switch. At some point or another, I thought this is like a different Lucille. And I believe there was actually like a mini Lucille version of it. But this is definitely not a mini Lucille. But the Varitone switch can be a little confusing. A lot of people think that it has like effects in it, or it's sort of like an out of phase switch. So let's quickly grab a Les Paul Classic that has that out of phase thing. So we'll put it in the middle position, put it in the out of phase, and we'll compare it to the middle position and the 5 different positions here on the Varitone. Alright, so hopefully there you can kind of gauge it's not really an out of phase thing. There's a couple positions on here where it's like, oh, I kind of hear maybe something sort of similar to it, but again, it's an EQ based filter, so it'll kind of cut certain frequencies out of each position and such. So let's actually listen to what the Varitone does. So we'll go over position 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and we'll kind of see what each does. I'll put it on the screen what it's cutting. So let's start with position 1. go all the way to 6. So hopefully that should clarify kind of what the Varitone switch does. It doesn't mean that Ryan's gonna sit here and pretend that he's BB King. He's not, but is definitely a very welcome addition that I may or may not use. It does seem though, having it in the middle position to me is kind of where the most benefit might come in, but I could be wrong. So there you go. Hopefully that gives you a little bit of information on what a Gibson BluesHawk actually is. It's its own type of guitar. It's not a Les Paul. Definitely not a Les Paul. It's very different body-wise, shape-wise. It's got the Florentine cutaway. It's not a crazy one like the ES 135. Even though it has the Fender scale, it's not a Fender type design guitar. It doesn't feel like a Fender guitar. If I play this and then play a Strat or a Telecaster or anything, it doesn't, I'm not sitting there going like, man, they feel exactly the same. It still feels like it's a Gibson. And to a lot of people who have said over the years that it does seem weird playing the small, thin body in comparison to a Les Paul, I would tend to agree with you. I don't find it uncomfortable at all, but I do find when I'm playing it, it's hugged into my body a little more, because of course we have the belly carve and everything, and it's the smaller body, the thinner body. It definitely feels a little different, and it does feel like you're playing a lot more neck than body. But again, it is very comfortable in playing. And because of all of the pickup options, it's a very welcome addition to my collection. And I do feel that I will play this a lot more than some of the other like one-off type guitars that I own. And if you are wondering if I am going to do a video with a lot more playing, there's going to be a lot more videos on this guitar down the line. I do plan on doing a full-on review for this as well, where I don't do as many comparisons as I did in this video, and there's a lot more playing. So keep an eye out for that. Thanks for watching.